This is massive news for the Phoenix Suns as they are looking to retain one of their key free agents. Bol Bol is expected to re-sign with the team. Plus, there are some other really important moves that are happening on the fringes as the Suns look to skirt the sidelines of the second apron. We're going to get into all the details right here on Suns Digest. My name is CJ Pierre, and I'm going to be breaking it down for you guys before we get into the nitty gritty of it all. We noticed that about 78% of you guys are watching our videos, and we appreciate that, but you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. You want to make sure you're keeping up with all the latest Suns news, free agency speculation. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we are going to have it all for you right here on this channel. We appreciate all the love as we approach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Now, let's get right into the nitty gritty as the Suns are re signing Bol Bol. We have talked about the possibility of Bol Bol remaining with the Phoenix Suns, that the Suns were interested in keeping him and making him a part of Mike Budenholzer's offense. And it looks like that is going to become a reality. Bol Bol, one of the fan favorites here with Suns fans. Suns fans erupt anytime he steps onto the court, and it looks like he's going to remain in Phoenix. The news coming. Another Woj bomb. Adrian Wojnarowski reporting that free agent forward center Bol Bol intends to return to the Phoenix Suns on a 1-year deal, according to sources telling ESPN. Now, Bol Bol, over the course of time, with his single year with the Phoenix Suns under head coach Frank Vogel at the time, not really someone who was a part of the rotation very much. Only kind of came in here and there, spot situations, but he showed flashes during his time on the court and had moments where it seemed like he was going to do well. And now it looks like he's going to possibly remain with the Phoenix Suns, not just for next year, but beyond that. As we take a look for this report from Evan Siddery saying, with the Suns re-signing Bol Bol to another 1-year deal, they now own his early bird rights for the 2025 offseason, meaning Phoenix can now offer Bol a long-term deal next year if it all goes well in a bigger role. So if the Suns remain kind of in that second apron team, let's say this year goes well, they want to keep moving forward with the big three, with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, and Bol Bol is a key contributor to that, then they own his bird rights. They have the opportunity to sign him to a bigger money extension moving forward after that. So that is actually big news for Bol Bol. He might, kind of sign closer to the veteran minimum now, big money later if everything goes well in Phoenix. And I know Suns fans are hopeful for that. Now let's take a look at what I talked about earlier in terms of his contributions last season. Obviously, minimal time on the court, averaging 5 points per game, 3 rebounds per game. Now, Bol Bol has a lot of offensive talent. He's actually a decent shooter, shooting 42% from 3 point range. Now, obviously, that's limited, so the sample size isn't huge, but he's actually pretty efficient and he's really active in terms of what he can do on the defensive end. Obviously, he's tall, he's lengthy, he's got a lot of size to him, and he has a lot of skills that I feel like the Phoenix Suns should want, particularly a head coach Mike Budenholzer, someone who's versatile offensively and defensively. And that is really important, especially when you look at what the Suns added in the NBA draft. Now, moving ahead, there's even more Suns news that we want to talk about, and that is two opt-outs, Josh Okogie and Damion Lee opting out of their contracts and they are going to become free agents. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat to that, and that the Phoenix Suns have the opportunity to retain those guys, even though they have opted out. And it looks like that there is a high possibility that both Josh Okogie and Damon Lee will resign with the Phoenix Suns just on veteran minimum deals. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty of that. First of all, Josh Okogie. He declined his $2.95 million player option, and that is the latest news on Okogie. He had about $3 million, coming up afforded to him. But if he declines that option, there might be other things out there for him. A report coming from Anil Gongonia saying that even though Eric Gordon, as we talked about in the previous video, opting out wasn't good for Phoenix, they only have his non-bird rights, so he'll likely leave in free agency. Doesn't look like Eric Gordon will be resigning, but when he gets into Josh Okogie opting out isn't the same. Phoenix has his early bird rights and can use that to sign him to a much larger contract moving forward, up to 4 years. Now, that is a significant option for Okogie, if that means if he is looking for big money elsewhere. Now, obviously, there's an opportunity for him to move forward in free agency and see if he can find maybe a role where he may be featured more and see more playing time, or he can opt to possibly re-sign a large deal with the Phoenix Suns and stay in what's probably going to still be a limited role, spot minutes, spot starts, in terms of injury, and that may fit in terms of what he's looking for. Now, if we take a look at what Josh Okogie added to the Phoenix Suns last year, again, also limited minutes under Frank Vogel. Okogie's more of the defensive, piece for the Suns. He's one of the key defensive stoppers. He's a solid defender. Normally, will be put on in situations where he'll be guarding the other team's best player on the perimeter. But he had some moments where, in terms of he would contribute as a scorer, but that's not really his forte. He's not the greatest shooter, only shooting 30% from 3 point range, averaging 4.6 points per game, 2.6 rebounds per game over the course of last season. Now, let's get into the interesting news. That's the Damion Lee news, which saying Phoenix Suns Damion Lee is declining his $2.85 million player option and will enter unrestricted free agency, according to league sources. Now, this is contradictory from previous news that we have reported on that Damion Lee was going to opt into his player option and remain with the Phoenix Suns on that number. But obviously, given what the Suns are able to do with the second apron and signing guys to the veteran minimum, it looks like there might be a little bit of a pay bump for Lee in this regard. And this is kind of backed up by Gerald Bourgeois, saying per source, the expectation is that Damion Lee stays with the Suns. Similar to Josh Okogie, he can re-sign for slightly above the vet minimum after opting out. That's another thing that the second apron just allows you to do when it comes to retaining your own guys, retaining your own free agents, that you can look for the veteran minimum elsewhere, but because of what the Suns are able to do, they can match and even go above that from what other teams are. If Damion Lee and Josh Okogie are guys that are going to be in that veteran minimum land. So right now, Damion Lee and Josh Okogie aren't really factoring into what the Suns are doing salary cap wise. So if we take a look at the roster, again, right now, 9 players under contract. Obviously, there's the expectation that they're going to re-sign Bol Bol. There's an estimate on Royce O'Neal, which we've also talked about. And then you add Josh Okogie, Damion Lee to that. That's 9. That's 11 players. Add the rookies that they got in the draft. That is 13 players. And then now the Suns are possibly going to look into free agency, the veteran minimum market, and then that will determine those final pieces, as it looks like the Suns roster for the 2024-2025 season is starting to take shape. When you take a look at those 9 players, and then you add Okogie, you add Lee, and then you add the rookies. Now we're talking maybe 2 or 3 extra spots, maybe some guys that might end up on some two-way contracts, but we're looking at the veteran minimum additions that we've been talking about, and those are probably going to be where we find the facilitating point guard and the depth on the interior. That's when we're talking guys like Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul potentially, and then we're talking about guys like Andre Drummond, Kevon Looney, guys that we've mentioned in videos constantly, but that's going to be probably where the Suns are going to be as we enter into free agency later this week. There's going to be tons of news flying, tons of news going around as the roster continues to fluctuate and change, and we are the place to be if you want to hear all your Suns news. So if you want to make sure you don't miss a thing, hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with what we've got cooking for you here at Suns Digest. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Again, my name is CJ Pierre. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and rocking with us. We'll see you next time, and go Phoenix Suns.